Hello, my name is Ben Lofthouse and I'm the manager of Henderson International Income Trust. I will be giving regular updates as I normally do on portfolio matters in the course of business, but today we've got a slightly different video for you, which really is discussing the role of the investment trust board of directors. One of the things that differentiates investment trusts from other investment vehicles are the board of directors. And I personally think that there's a great value that they add. And when you look at trusts in the long term, there's a long history of trusts in the UK that have existed for many, many decades and that have been able to change and adapt over time, partly because they do have these independent boards. So I'd like to introduce today Simon Jeffries, who's the chairman of the Henderson International Income Trust board. And I'll take this opportunity for him to introduce himself to us. And then we'll talk through some of the things such as what do boards do for investors, what are their focus points, and how we interact together. So Simon, would you like to perhaps introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the board of directors?
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, I've been chair of HINT board of directors for coming on for 3 years now. And prior to that, I chaired the audit committee as a non-executive director. My background briefly, I was an audit partner at PwC for most of my career, and I then worked in the global leadership of 2 asset management companies before moving on to what is now a portfolio non-executive director career. I sit on a number of other boards. I chair 2, and I chair the audit committees of the others. My activities, the industries range from mainly financial services, but there's a technology company and Crown Prosecution Service, so it's fairly diverse. Ben, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about our focus and what we do, why we're there, and I think it's extremely important for an investment trust to have an independent board, a strong independent board that realizes what's important to shareholders. For example, in our case, a steady and growing level of dividend, that works hard with the manager to keep the level of costs down. One of the ways in which we do that is by growing the trust. And this is probably one of our most significant achievements, if you like. We started off subscale. We were a very small investment trust when we first launched, probably 10 years ago. And since then, we've grown to about 300 million of funds under management, which is a level at which we're starting to become of interest to a very broad constituency of portfolio managers. We're very selective about the acquisitions or mergers that we execute. And at all times, we're looking to make sure that our performance is good. We stay in line with strategy. And by doing this, I think with your excellent portfolio management, we've managed to maintain a premium rating over a number of years, which has stood us in good stead to refresh the board. Directors like to join successful investment trusts, and also to position us well to continue to keep growing the trust. See share issues, potential mergers with other investment trusts. We're always on the lookout to create a better environment for HINT to flourish in.
Yeah, and I think that's a very valid point. I think the best investment trusts in the market and certainly within Janus Henderson have been around for, in many cases, decades, and have seen very many different market conditions, and they've seen enormous changes within the world and within the world of savings and investment. And I think that would be probably my ambition for this trust, having launched it, would be 50 to 60 years from now, it is still relevant for investors. And I'm pretty sure I won't be running it, and definitely none of the directors currently will be involved in it because the restrictions on membership now are much shorter than they used to be as well. And I think to stay relevant and to be relevant for that long for an investment vehicle is quite unusual. And the fact there are so many investment trusts that do it is a testament, I think, to the fact that the boards, have a value. And that would be my ambition for shareholders, is that if you've saved in this product now, you can have the view that someone has an oversight of that whilst you leave it in your portfolio, and 10 to 20 years later, when you need it, it will have been looked after.
Ben, shall I talk a little bit about the other members of the board?
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to shareholders to know, how a board is composed, what you're looking for in members there, and what they bring to the trust for investors.
Yeah, thank you. We have 4 other non-executive directors. We're a very enthusiastic board. We have a very diverse range of experiences and background. A lot of investment management experiences you would expect. Some of the other directors sit on other investment trust boards. People have backgrounds in wealth management, private equity, investment management itself, and the sales and distribution of financial services products. So we're a good group. Our skills complement one another, and the common thread is we're all very passionate about HINT.
Yeah, and I think that's probably important for shareholders, who can't see the interaction between managers and boards, to understand. Is really, I guess part of what it brings for me is experience. So, we generally have someone on the board who is representative of the the shareholder base in terms of the retail manager, fund manager, and has got experience there, so that they understand the priorities of those. We quite often have people with some legal expertise to make sure that things like the arrangements that the trust has with its suppliers, are correct and fair, and that there aren't undue risks there that might arise, and that risks are transferred wherever possible away from investment trust itself, onto the fund manager. And so these are some of the things that I think I've found over time in terms of experience that the board has brought. Particularly with the increasing regulation of the industry. So again, there's a lot of regulatory work and regulatory things that have to be understood, and that can change the industry over time. And I think the board has a key role in helping in that, because by sitting on other boards, people kind of build up a knowledge in those areas. I think it's worth saying, maybe you want to talk a little bit about how the board refreshes chairman, because it's not the case anymore that you can be a member for life, is it?
Yeah, no, that's true. We do make sure that we refresh the board from time to time, and we also, when we do that, make sure that where new skills become even more important to the investment trust, we look particularly for candidates for board positions who have those skills. For example, at the moment, our focus is around next generation. That would bring more diversity to the board, and I would hope our next appointment will bring on somebody a little bit younger than some of the rest of us.
Do you think you could give shareholders, a practical example of how the board operates, and how those board meetings go?
Yeah, Ben, thanks. I think we could take COVID as an example. There's been so much disruption over that. We've been able to keep business as usual going. We haven't been able to meet physically, but all of our meetings have continued virtually. So everything that we needed to do, we've been able to continue to do. On top of that, though, we have introduced fortnightly meetings where we do things particularly related to the COVID risk. So you will have seen the level of dividends coming into the portfolio. We've had some concern that there may be companies that are not paying the dividends they used to. Questions about how does that, in fact, impact our dividend capacity, and what might that do for our dividend at the end of the year. So we spend a lot of time discussing HINT's reaction to all of that with you, to make sure that we're well positioned for shareholders when it comes to paying dividends.
Yeah, and I think that's a very relevant example, because this year, for example, when there was a lot of uncertainty about dividend payments, we've actually introduced for the first time a few fixed income investments into the portfolio because we saw opportunity in that market, and the board and I, had discussions on that. And how the relationship often works is I need to put together the investment case and proposal to show that it is in the interest of shareholders, to take certain actions. And the board reviews that, and we agreed that. So we do have ad hoc meetings, around that type of reaction, and that would be a good example of one that happened recently. So I think I'll stop there, and I'll just thank the chairman for sharing his time with us today, and just say I will be providing an update in due course on the portfolio and how things are going in the world otherwise. Thank you very much.